Let me tell you something about Slayer fans. They look like the extras from Lord of the Rings. Release the Slayer fans. Slayer! Slayer! We're here to witness Slayer!
Anyone who's listened to the first couple of episodes, you know that we talked about Slayer on the second one. And so today, Slayer announces a reunion show for Louder Than Life. And this is just about the dumbest shit I've heard and makes me so sick of these marketing tactics from the comments. And from the comments I've read so far, I think a lot of fans would agree. I mean, I just cannot believe what the hell I'm reading.
You know, you really can't believe whenever a band says they're going to go away. I mean, it's not going to happen. But Slayer is one of those bands where I really did not see this coming. You know, Kerry King's been very vocal about, you know, thinking that they ended too soon. He said that a million times. But, you know, the rift between he and Tom Araya, I didn't see this coming. So, yeah, to see especially Louder Than Life yesterday get announced with Slayer, Motley fucking Crue. I mean, come on, man. I'm there. I'm so there. So there.
Slayer coming onto this was the last thing I thought, especially after the discussion we just had. We talked about how Slayer went out on top. They ended it right. They didn't deal with any of the COVID crap. And, yeah, great timing for them again. They come back right after all that COVID crap again. So that's just not at all what I expected to hear. And it just kind of, I don't know. It honestly was a shocker.
Well, I think, you know, I mean, I agree, especially with Kerry King just dropping his own stuff, you know, a few weeks ago. And he also, he did the Rolling Stone interview where, you know, he shits all over Dave Lombardo, who, of course, not in Slayer anymore. But then he goes on to, I don't know if shit on Tom Araya is the right thing to say, but, you know, he's just, I think the quote was like, yeah, if Tom called me, I'd pick up the phone. I mean, I don't really wish him dead or anything right now, you know, which is, I mean, that's an interesting way to speak about your former bandmate.
Yeah, the one thing that sticks out to me on this, and it just goes along with what we were talking about with reunions and stuff, is Sum 41. I think Sum 41, if I'm not mistaken, announced their farewell tour or something like that, maybe sometime last year, and it just makes me believe that, once again, that's just not true. Those guys are significantly younger than people that are, you know, like Tom Araya and Kerry King, who are in their 50s going into their 60s. And somebody who I know, before any of this Slayer stuff happened, even mentioned, they were like, I feel like this is, you know, a bit of a little bit of a marketing thing here, marketing ploy, tactic, whatever you want to call it. But they were like, Sum 41 announces their, you know, farewell tour. They were like, give it 5 years, they're going to come back and do this same thing that everyone's been doing. And we just got done talking about in the last video about Motley Crue and that whole contract thing and how they blew it up, and, you know, rules are meant to be broken, and it's so stupid. I mean, people will, like, bands will come up with any reason to, you know, to just reunite or to make money or whatever, and whatever. I mean, there's so many jokes going on in the comments again about, you know, them needing money and all sorts of things. But, you know, same thing with Kiss that we talked about. It's just like these bands can never be done. I really did think that Slayer had the perfect exit, as we talked about. Perfect timing right before COVID, went out strong, did MSG, and just packed house. And then, you know, there's the fans are divided, of course. There's so many people who are like, oh, we need Slayer back, and it's so good to have Slayer back. And then, of course, people are like, I spent so much money you know, flying to these last shows, or what I thought was going to be the last shows, and here they are just 5 years later, like it's nothing. And so these people thought they saw history, you know, it being Slayer's last show, and they really didn't. So I kind of don't blame people for being upset.
Well, but let me pause on the Slayer thing and jump back real quick to Sum 41. What's interesting is that on that farewell tour that I believe is happening this summer, you know, they're doing sheds. They're headlining sheds. which, you know, you and I have talked about this off of the show before. I was kind of surprised. You were not. But then, you know, when you look at that tour and it's playing, you know, 15, 20,000 seat amphitheaters, and then you look at how low they are on the bill here, you know, billed, you know, alongside Ginger, you know, it's just, I don't know. It's kind of confusing to me that they're so far down on the lineup, but then headlining Sheds on a tour of their own this year.
Yeah, that is true, and there was no surprise there for me. I don't know. I don't really know what Sum 41 typically does, venue size wise. You know, I thought that if I had to guess, they would do, you know, sheds or arenas. That's just what I assumed. But maybe it's kind of like Slayer, where it wasn't that case until it's a final tour or a farewell tour, and then all of a sudden the ticket demand for tickets really goes up, and they can play these arenas and sheds and all that stuff. But yeah, that was a surprise to you. But yeah, it's just really like it really makes people not want to be able to trust what these bands are saying. And it's just, there's too many bands in a row that have done this that it's just nobody stays to their word. It's almost like if a band doesn't come back, it's not because they didn't want to, it's just because they couldn't, or a band member died, or they broke up, or whatever, you know. But yeah, it just seems like you can't trust anyone's word that actually says this is our final tour.
Well, you know, going back to people being all bent out of shape, that they flew out to L.A. for Slayer's last show at the Forum, or they went and saw him at the Garden or whatever. You know, I mean, look, yeah, I guess it's a bummer, but at the end of the day, I mean, to me, it's like, that's on you. Slayer is most certainly not the first band that's ever done a farewell tour, and is now coming back. I mean, this type of shit's been going on for decades now. So, you know, why people still get all bent out of shape and, oh my God, I've got to go see them. You know, 9 out of 10 times the band is going to come back. You know, I even said in my video yesterday, you know, we'd be sitting here for quite a while trying to figure out one band that, you know, big band, that we're not talking, you know, underground club bands, but, you know, some big band that said they're going to do a farewell tour and actually meant it. I mean, I really can't even think of one off the top of my head. Everybody ends up coming back. But yeah, I mean, I agree that Slayer did go out the perfect way, because they were not doing those types of venues. If they were playing in sheds or whatever, they were part of a package, you know, Mayhem Fest or whatever, you know, insert, you know, metal tour name here. But I mean, I remember 10 years ago or so seeing them headline the Agora in Cleveland, which is a 2,000 cap theater. And if I recall, I want to say the lineup was Slayer, Exodus, and Suicidal Tendencies, I believe. You know, 2,000 cap theater. And yeah, I mean, so yeah, certainly, you know, farewell tours, reunions, all that kind of stuff, because they wouldn't be headlining. If they were still an active band, they would not be headlining Louder Than Life or Riot Fest. I mean, they'd be high up on the billing, but I mean, not headliner, probably not even direct support. I mean, they'd be 3-4 bands down. So, you know, but yeah, I mean, these things generate stupid amounts of money. It's insane.
They do, and honestly, I'd be upset if I were one of those fans, like, because, yeah, I get it. There's not really any bands that have actually done a farewell tour and stuck by it, but I'd be pretty upset if I don't know, spent $500 on a flight and another $500 on hotels or whatever the hell it was, plus another, who knows what the tickets cost, $500, and you're $1,500 in, or however, who knows, $2,000 or whatever, and you think you're, like I said, you're witnessing the last shows, and I get it. They can do whatever they want, and they can come back if they want, and I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of people upset at the fact that they are back, but it just makes me wonder how much of the stuff we just talked about in the last episode is actually relevant. You know, we talked about Tom Araya not speaking to Kerry King for 5 years since they basically disbanded, and how true is that? You know, some people were like, maybe it's through management, but I don't know if that's really true. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe that could be true, but it's just kind of like, it's just a little irritating. You know, I don't even, like I said in the previous episode, I don't consider myself to be a Slayer fan, but I really do find it irritating that they release all this press for based around Kerry King. You think this is the next step for him. You think that Slayer's done. He talks about Dave Lombardo being dead to him. He hasn't talked to Kerry King or talked to Tom Araya and all that stuff, and it just makes you wonder how much of that is true, because planning something like this doesn't happen in a week's time. This has probably been months and months of planning, and it's all strategic, but I just think it's a little just kind of frowned upon, in my opinion, we're going to release this press release, and we're going to say that, Kerry King hasn't talked to Tom Araya, and then we're going to announce the Slayer reunion, and it's just like, come on, dude. Like, I would say that you would think Slayer would be big enough to where they don't need to do all that. You would think that all of a sudden, like, let's say they hadn't done all that. I just thought it would have been big enough to just say, here's the Louder Than Life lineup, Slayer's headlining, and it's going to cause the same amount of chaos as it would without all that stuff.
Well, I think it's important to note that it is only 2 festivals for now. Will it turn into more? I'm sure it will. I mean, I highly doubt they're going to do just these 2 things. But, yeah, I mean, it just proves that you really can't believe anything, because also in that Rolling Stone interview that's like 3 weeks old or whatever, Kerry King also says he was asked about Slayer, and he did say it is possible that they could play again. But, I forget his exact words, so I whatever. But it's basically something like, it's not a priority. I'm not actively seeking whatever to play with Slayer right now. But it's like, unless that interview was conducted 8 months ago and only released 3 weeks ago, which it wasn't, these shows were already on the books, like you said. I mean, these types of things don't happen in 2 weeks. It takes, especially when you're dealing with a band at that level, and you've got to figure out the money and all that kind of stuff. We're talking a lot of money, which, there's all sorts of different people that have to get involved. So, whenever somebody says anything in the press, you can't believe it, because 9 out of 10 times it's fucking bullshit. I got to say, the biggest thing to me is just it doesn't make any sense when, Kerry King just announced his new project. And then, and it's been 5 years, 4.5 years or whatever. And, so there's just so many questions. I mean, none of it makes any sort of sense to me at all. I'm stoked, but it's so, the timing of this was just so odd. And again, I can't imagine that they will only do 2 festivals. Maybe they will. Maybe they're just going to be, the festival band or whatever. But I don't know, man. These bands drive me nuts.
If you want to see full episodes of the Take Me On Tour podcast, be sure to click the link in the description or visit takemeontour.com. Thanks for watching.